Hello, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Daddy of 'Em All podcast, where we explore all things Cheyenne Frontier Days. I'm Tom Hirsig, CEO of Cheyenne Frontier Days. I was born and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming. My family's been part of Cheyenne Frontier Days since day one. On today's episode, we're diving into the Year of the Bull, a celebration of the bulls, riders, fighters, and stock contractors who've made their mark at Cheyenne Frontier Days and in the world of rodeo. We're talking legends, wrecks, and the grit it takes to ride an 1,800-pound animal. Stick around. It's going to be a wild ride.
A part of Western history, a legend walking tall. Cheyenne Frontier Days, the daddy of all.
So today I'm joined by a couple of really good friends. Dennis Humphrey, currently owner of Capital Roofing in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but former NFR bull rider. And Skip Ross, a very dear friend who's owner of Smart Sports Medicine, physician, and has been the head of the arena medics for 37 years at Cheyenne Frontier Days.
38 this year.
Yep. So Dennis, this is really a great opportunity for me, and I've been looking forward to this because the three of us all grew up together in Cheyenne, Wyoming since day one. We've known each other in and out of the rodeo circles. We've all been pretty successful in life, except for maybe Dennis. You know, he struggled a little bit, but
I have potential.
Really, we want to talk about some things that in rodeo that we all did, but some of the things that we did together. It's been a great ride for all of us to be part of Cheyenne Frontier Days and everything else. So, Dennis, let's kind of start with you. Give our listeners a quick background on how you got into bull riding.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I played Little League baseball for 5 years. I was 8 till I was 12, and it was a season where I would have went from Little League to Babe Ruth, just the next step up in baseball. And of all things, it was about early August of would have been about 1973, I suppose, and I saw a little classified ad in the Cheyenne newspaper that says Junior Rodeo at Cheyenne Sheriff's Posse, yearling Brahma bull riding and buck and pony riding. So I thought, hey, that sounds interesting. So I showed up, and it turned out it was steer riding instead of yearling bull riding, which was fine. Fell off my steer, fell off my pony. 2 weeks later, they had another one just like it. Won first in the pony riding, fell off my steer, and I was kind of hooked. And just a few weeks later, I met a fellow that's become a lifelong friend, Troy Brown, and his mom was kind of the head of the Little Britches Rodeo right here in Cheyenne at the time. Yeah. And so he kind of got me hooked on Little Britches. So I got going in Little Britches Rodeo and never picked up a ball glove for 25 years.
Mm. That's amazing.
And rodeo was a really exciting time, fun time. And as you just mentioned, there's a lot of neat times, a lot of friendships. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So where we got started, right, was probably the high school rodeo scene.
Yep.
And when I think back about some of the competitors that were in high school rodeoing at that time, there's a lot of them that went on to have pretty good careers in rodeo.
Yeah, one of my faves is Bobby Harris from Gillette.
Yeah, world champion team roper.
Yeah, went on to do great things. And to this day, when I think of him, I just laugh and giggle about him in high school. He was a funny guy.
So there was a whole passel of like bareback riders and bull riders from Cheyenne at the time that we were high school rodeoing. Right. And I remember one time we always debated because us good guys at the timed event end and you bad guys at the rough stock event, we always had those conversations and those debates about who was better. And I remember you talked all of us into the timed event guys into entering the bull riding at Pinedale, Wyoming. And you said, if you enter the bull riding, we'll all enter either the bulldogging or the calf roping. Well, the timed event guys held up their end of the bargain and we entered the bull riding, and you guys didn't enter the timed events.
Well, the more we looked at it, we realized there wasn't much challenge to that. So we didn't think it was worth spending our time.
You about killed all of us timed event guys in the bull riding, though.
Well,
I remember you all sitting up on the buck and chutes laughing as you're pulling our bull ropes.
That's called negotiating strategy.
I love it.
So, Dennis, you went on high school and then into the pros. That had to be quite an experience to ride bulls at the pro level.
Yeah, it was great. High school was good. Little Britches, high school rodeo, and and I got my PRCA permit just as I turned 18 when I was a senior in high school, and filled it in about 3 months, and off to run and start. So got off to a pretty good start, had some success, young, and turned into a nice way of life. What I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think about it now at age 64 versus age 18 to 30, and I don't know that I'd do it again, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And, the friends you meet, the miles you travel, the experiences you have, the competition itself is amazing. There's nothing like riding a bull.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, it's kind of like try to describe the taste of chocolate. Well, you just got to go try it. And that probably is the reason we wanted you guys to go just try it for yourself, because it's just something that everybody ought to experience, at least once.
I only needed one time. That was enough.
Well, so at least you're a quick learner. See, I admire you for that.
So biggest win in bull riding? Well,
a couple of things that just come to mind. And my whole career was kind of bookended between my first bull ever at Cheyenne Frontier Days and my last bull I ever got on was in Cheyenne Frontier Days.
Wow.
And both of them were the first Saturday open day, first performance, and as one of the coolest days was the very, very first day of Frontier Days. My first time, I was 18 years old. I just been a 2-time state champion bareback rider in high school and a 1-time state champion bull rider. And I think I just won second in the nationals in the bareback riding. And I was kind of, and I just filled my pro card.
Yeah.
I was kind of a cock of the walk young guy at the time, thinking I was really something special. And out of all things, the first bull I ever got on at Cheyenne Frontier Days, my dream rodeo since being a kid, I won first in the first go round.
I remember that day.
And I remember it to this day, 45 years ago. I remember the shirt I wore, the chaps I wore, the hat, the bull, what he did, how I felt. And I'll never forget this. I walking out of the arena that day, walking under the tunnel, heading back to my car. I had my gear bag over my head, or over my shoulder by myself. Out of all things, I go, man, I was 84 points. That's only 16 points from perfect.
That was a great day. I was just shocked you stayed on. So
I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then. So,
no, that wasn't. That was really a great day.
So, and then obviously I won Houston in 1984, the Houston Astrodome. That was a really, really special night. Rode a couple bulls that were kind of scared the socks off me. Got by them. That made it a little bit better. And then, the year 1986, I did make the NFR. Had a decent week. Rode 6 out of 10. Placed on only one.
That's good.
Great experience. So yeah, there's a lot to recall from the years. I had my pro card for I believe 13 years, from 79 to 92. The last bull I ever got on was first Saturday Frontier Days 1992, and what wasn't nearly as fun as the 14 years before, 13 years before was. So how things change, and it was just time to change. Charlene, my wife, was pregnant with our first son, and we just decided that might be just a good time to be moving on and doing something a little bit different. The roofing business that we'd started through early 80s, it kind of started getting some life and needed a little bit more attention. And as a newlywed, I didn't like being gone as much as I used to, anyway. And then when you realize you got a baby on the way, you realize you do have some more responsibilities. And while I admire those guys that rodeo today and do it professionally and handle business, and make a nice living doing it, but that our family people, I admire them. It's just, I just wasn't that guy. And it was just kind of time for me to be done. And I used to wonder what life after rodeo would be like, because it just seemed like all I did was rodeo. And life after rodeo has been good. Mm. Yeah, I got a beautiful wife, been married for 35 years, a couple boys, and the roofing biz has been good, and life after rodeo has been good.
So I remember I was like one of your first roofing clients, right?
Yep.
You came to my place
with the Ward brothers,
showed up with all the cowboys, and they showed up to put my roof on. And they said, "Hey, you got an air compressor we can borrow?" "We don't have one." I said, "Sure, you can borrow mine." "Well, by the way, we can't work on the weekends because we're going rodeoing on the weekends."
That was one of my favorite projects to this day, and that's like 40 years ago.
That was a long time ago.
But yeah, I think once you have kids, it's a different. The thought of getting hurt is different.
Sure. Yep.
Responsibility.
Let's talk a little bit about you. So you pursued more of the academia role. You were a lot smarter than Dennis.
Barely.
But you went on. You became a doctor, right? So that's a great accomplishment in itself. But you never left the rodeo world. I mean, ever since I've known you, you've been a part of all kinds of, especially the bull riding has always been an important piece of your life. And
that's where we see the most business.
So talk a little bit about that, though. I mean, it's more than business because I know your passion.
Yeah. No, I grew up in the rodeo here. My dad was in the sheriff's posse. We talked about the sheriff's posse, the little rodeo. He was gone all the time because back then the sheriff's posse actually would go out in the forest and stuff when people got lost, and they actually had a function.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. But so they also worked in the arena.
Right.
And they did like the back check and pick up and stuff. And so I would ride on the back of my dad's horse and sit on the fence. That's how for years growing up,
and the sheriff's posse relay race.
Yeah.
That was historic for years. Yeah.
And so I missed only one Frontier Days ever. And that was 1 year in med school.
Really?
I couldn't come back. But so just watching rodeo. And then when I came back for the residency in Cheyenne at family practice, and so back then Mike Herber was one of the main arena doctors, and so I did a rotation with him in my residency, and so I started working the arena in 1986, and he opened the door for me, and then I kind of just kept going since then, and so it's. I like my cowboys. I always say they don't make enough money to be jerks. And it's like the high dollar athletes are a little spooky.
Right.
And so the rodeo cowboys just want to ride, and they appreciate what you do, and they'll, whatever you can do to keep them ride.
Have you ever added up the pro bono work you do for cowboys that you didn't get paid for?
You don't dare. You have people like, even bull riders only, I had people stop me. This is a good gig for you. I'm like, they don't pay me. They're like, what? No, it's all voluntary. Well, and I paid my own way for the first 2 years.
Yeah. And that's another great story because you guys were both ground floor, the bull riders only, which was kind of the precursor to the PBR and all the big bull riding events. Talk a little bit about how you guys, it was a group of all your friends that started that, right?
Yeah. And I was with these guys in Shaw, and he's like, you want to invest in this? I'm like, yeah, but it was the early days was great.
It was really, really cool, and it was fun to be part of something
ground level,
getting it off the ground, Yeah. And while I've heard it said, through the years that oftentimes the first one to market, if you will,
it's the second guy that makes the money.
One that makes things really, really big,
right?
But the BRO was special for the fact that Shaw and the guys that he got together had the guts to go do it first. And I'm tickled to death that those PBR guys, those original 20, the founders, they've done well. And it just really does me good, warms my heart to see, the money, the fame, the fortune, that, if you will, that what's become of the PBR. I'm happy for them. I'm impressed by them. But I also know that there was someone that was there before them, and the PBR didn't start.
I always say it's hard to watch your show go down the road without you.
So we were kind of the first ones there, and all those top guys that started the PBR, they all rode with us the first couple years.
And I said there was nothing more fun than those early bull ridings. And we were broke, but man, they were great because we had all the very top guys, and it was the bull ridings were amazing.
Well, and then like Dennis says, you guys were the first ones to run through the wall.
Right.
No one else had ever tried to have standalone events in rodeo before.
Right. And to this day, obviously there's only one time to be the first, but our biggest, our claim to fame, kind of our greatest moment was also the beginning of the end for us. In April of 1997, we were the first ever rodeo event televised live on network TV. We're on Fox.
Really?
Yeah.
At the
and
Thomas and Mack.
Thomas and Mack in Las Vegas.
It was amazing.
And it was an incredible TV show. The ratings were 5+. I think they said we outdid the hockey playoffs, the baseball playoffs, with not a lot of media hype. It was a really special event, and the TV ratings were good. Our butts in the seat were a little bit down, and so our greatest moment was also just kind of the beginning of the end, and it took us about 13 months to kind of breathe our last gasp. It's kind of like as you're. This is kind of fitting how the cowboy, you go write the check and you get on, you hope to make the whistle. And, so you better get that check to the bank before the other one that you wrote the day before kind of gets there. So it's just kind of the idea that, and even, moving forward in business, you're looking at if it's a credit line in and out of that or whatever, it's just maneuvering some things, in business. So we just didn't quite create the breaks we needed, make things happen, at the right time. But we had a good game, and we're glad it was good enough that the PBR was able to just take it and run and do great things with it. And so it's really, really nice to see the glitz and the glamour, if you will, that's just happened. It's good. But there's also a lot of other good bull riding organizations out there that are doing, bull riding, because bull riding is a standalone event.
Yeah.
It's pretty special. It's the coolest man versus beast thing there is, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And there's something special about a 150, 160 pound guy, many of them smaller. I weigh about 160. Weigh about when I weighed when I was riding bulls. But there's something special about a 130, 140, 150 pound guy challenge a 12, 15, 18, 2,100 pound bull. And when I rode, it was before the helmets and the vests. There's something special, yet a little bit psychotic about, all right, you're 15, 1,800, I'm 150 pounds, I got a glove, pair of chaps, cowboy hat, pair of spurs, let's rumble. That's just insane.
It is insane.
Well,
but it's cool when it works right.
When it works.
And the riding part's great, but then there's the escape part, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, just trying to get away and get to the fence or find a safe landing spot.
And interesting, and Twiggy could attest to this even more, that way more bull riders are hurt from a bull's hind legs landing on them that kick up and step on them than really chase them down and quote unquote gore them, if you will.
It's the get off and the getaway.
It's rare that, actually, good with you sitting right here. I mean, it was a horn of a bull that killed Lane, on the arena floor. Yeah. But more often than not, it's a bull's feet. Say a bull spinning around, the guy gets bucked off, and as his feet come down, and I've seen a guy get stepped on his head, I've seen him get stepped in the middle, whatever. And those are the most dangerous ones. But now that you mention it, the cool thing about the bull is the chase. And I don't believe people like seeing people get hurt, but they love seeing those near misses.
Yeah, they do.
And there's something, part of this deal about being a bull rider, why it's so cool, is people just think you're way cool and you're way tougher than you really are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things look really bad, where a bull flips you, steps on you, wallers you around, or whatever. You get up and you walk around, walk off, and people going, "Oh wow, look at that guy!" And we're going, "Didn't hurt." But it's like the Dan Reeves deodorant commercial forever ago. Never let him see you sweat. It's really, really hurting me right over here. But I'm not going to let anybody know this till I get behind closed doors.
We don't see it till we get in the trailer.
Sure, yeah. Because nobody likes to see a cowboy cry.
But it's always amazed me though how many times. That's why I would say it's proof there's a God, because how many times I've seen the hooves cross the neck and everything and not get them, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, you touched upon Lane Frost, and I know, Skip, you and I were both in the arena 50 foot away from that. Maybe one of the saddest days in all of rodeo, whether you even were there or not, because we talk about, the three of us knew Lane pretty well. What an incredible human being. He was, and you never kind of realize that till people are gone, right? Once they're gone and you think about all the good things he did with the kids, and just, he was so in touch with everything. It was just incredible.
And even the documentary, I learned so much about him in the documentary. He had that video, did Bull Talk. Did you ever watch it?
Yeah, a little bit.
And guys like JB Money and those guys, they've watched it 100,000 times. But it's interesting. And he was talked a lot about the get off and getting away. And it's like, but he got trapped. The bull stepped on his shap and he had a shot at him. Because I looked at him, and then he jumped up and looked at me like this, and then he went down. I was like, oh.
But I mean, when you were watching that in real time, it never looked like it was bad.
No.
Like
everyone was like,
happened.
What happened?
Looked like the bull just ran over the top of him.
Yeah. It really looked.
That was real interesting the way that happened that day, because I met Lane in 83 when he was a rookie, and he died in 89. And over those 6 years, and I think Twiggy would agree that we'd been around him enough and seen him enough. So a couple of things to talk about, the get-offs. We saw that guy take so many wrecks that looked way worse than the ultimate one that killed him, and he would just walk away. I mean, he'd fling him like a rag doll, because early on, he could really ride. He could not get off to save his life. and so it was, you knew you could watch a great ride, and also after most of the time,
watch the show afterwards.
It would be a wreck. But what was really interesting, we got traveling with Jim Sharp and Tough Hedeman, and Jim Sharp's like a cat. Seemed like he could come off in almost any predicament and land on his feet. It was amazing. But somehow, some way, he must have got some schooling on getting off, because through his short career, he was always a great bull rider, but he got to be way better at getting off in a much less dramatic fashion. Right. And so that's why
that's a big piece of the deal.
The day that he died was
It didn't look like much.
It didn't look like that much. Even when he first heard he died, I go, no, I just winded him. He's going to be fine. But what was really bizarre about that day too was that was just sandwiched between, because I think just the ride before, the ride after, where Marty Stannard had rode Mr. T for 93 points.
Yeah.
Two rides before.
Right after that, then and it's just as a.
It's a freak deal.
It was, and again, it was a freak deal. But you go from a high, you see Stannard ride, spot for 93 points, great bull ride. And then the thing that happened with Lane, and even when you at the time, I mean, he was way closer to it. It basically kind of died in your arms, if you will.
I did mouth to mouth on Lane.
But we didn't have that information just at that point in time.
No.
But I said, well, Lane's going to be fine. Winded him. He's going to be fine. Then when we started hearing these things, and then at the emergency room after that day, so I said, it looked like literally it was a morgue, and Tuff was standing against a wall, and just look on their face. He goes, he's dead. I goes, it's like, and I did the,
and I kept working on, because every time I'd come out of the trauma room, I'd see those guys. And I'm like, okay, let's try something else. And it's like, I couldn't come out and say it's over.
Yeah.
And it was like, but it really learned something in the documentary that I didn't know. I was like, oh, where his mom, Elsie, was talking about 2 weeks before injured a rib. And they were worried about him riding in Cheyenne because of his ribs. I'm like, no one ever told me that.
Really?
And I think he hit him here, and that broken rib went in and got his aorta.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, that changes the story.
Dennis, stupid question. How do you get off of a bull? What do you try to do?
Well, the reality is getting off bulls is very, really easy. Getting them off it delicately, that's the tough part. But it is something that, if you like most athletes that are good at what they do, they're pretty good at start, duration, and completion. And there's certainly exceptions, to every rule. Lane was just a good example. Made a great bull ride that day, and just a little bit of a fluky deal that wasn't really a plan to get off,
muddy,
come out
so
his hand.
he kind of got stuck.
Whatever. But anyway, but I think you just kind of learned over the time, because there's a bit of a rhythm that comes with that, and it's a timing thing to kind of get your hand kind of untied, get loose, and you catch that bull ride at the right time. So if you lean out into your hand, these days got some of those, what I call backwards bull ropes, those Brazilian style bull ropes.
Right.
So a little bit different. But back when I rode, when you jump off into your hand, so if you rode left-handed, you jump off the left side, and just the way that bull rope is put together, it releases as you turn loose. So if you can get up into your hand, the rope loosens at the same time you turn loose, and you'll come off. If you fall off away from your hand, then that usually just tightens that rope. So that's where you see these hang-ups occur. So it's kind of some practice and some timing, and so as that bull's kicking, and when you turn off, and so when you do it right, they'll kind of kick you out there, and oftentimes it's reasonably easy to land kind of on your feet or your knees pretty gracefully, and walk away. But again, anytime you're battling a bull, 10 to 12 times your weight, and he ain't all that tickled, you're, doing what you're doing, riding him. And so sometimes, you barely make the whistle, and you get off when he decides you're going to get off. And so sometimes the timing doesn't work so well, but done right, you can kind of time it. But that's part of what makes bull riding special. And again, like I said, you talk about a man versus beast, and the more I watch it these days, the more I admire it, because believe it or not, when I rode bulls all the time, I thought, well, I'm nothing special. It can't be that big a deal. I do that all the time. Well, I watch it now, and I go, those guys are nuts.
No, it's true. You watch it, you just go, wow. And it's fascinating. I mean,
I had a cousin.
What I've learned, even with bull riders only, is the guys, they know these bulls and what they're going to do so much. They talk, and I would watch them talking to each other. What does this bull do? And they kind of know the rhythm and what to expect. It doesn't always happen that way, but it's more. There's more technique to it than you think.
So, Skip, did you have any near misses as a medic out in the arena?
A couple of times.
Yeah.
We were doing a bull ride.
Have you had any direct hits?
We were doing a bull ride, and I think it was, I'm trying to think, might have been Tacoma, but so I was usually now I don't stay in the arena because I don't move as quick as I used to, but I was in the arena, and I jumped up on the gate, on one of the panels, and the bull come around, and when I jumped up, the bull that was in the chute, I stepped on his horn, and he went wham, and he jammed my foot up against the bar and broke it. And I jumped back, and I landed on the ass of the bull that was in there. And I'm like, this is not going to go well. But luckily, I came out of it.
You talk about being between a rock and a hard spot.
I jumped back, and I landed on this bull. What am I doing?
That will wake you up.
Oh, buddy.
Oh, man.
But otherwise, no. I was pretty fast back then.
Dennis, did you ever have any big injuries?
That's interesting that you would ask that. I was on probably 11 or 1,200 bulls throughout my career, and I used to say I could count the significant injuries on 6 or 7 fingers. But of all these things, fast forward 33 years since I've been on my last bull, so I say ultimately they weren't that serious because none of them bother me now. And you mentioned the grace of God earlier, the fact that more people aren't killed, and I wasn't killed, and more aren't. That I don't know how many undersized bulls I've seen with feet stepping, all around me, and I broke my jaw. I had 60 some stitches in my face, but of all things, never broke a teeth, never broke a jaw that particular time. I did break a jaw, cracked my skull, broke an eardrum, broke some ribs, collapsed a lung, just the fun stuff, just the rest. I broke a collarbone.
Nothing big.
But you've heard Donnie Gay say it on TV. People talk about, well, if you're going to ride bulls, it's not if you get hurt, it's when and how bad, and then how you handle it, so I do find it humorous to think about the mental capacity of bull riders. I talk about I'm smart enough to be a bull rider and a roofer all in one lifetime. Look at me go. My intellect has no bounds. But I remember there'd been some times I'd get hurt and be in the hospital somewhere, and I'm going, oh, this hurts, this stinks. I'm never doing this again. So every day you get feeling a little bit better. You go, man, I can't wait. It's just sick.
It wasn't that bad.
It's an addiction.
But it is like a disease, like an addiction, but in a funny way. Because I remember you're like, I'm never doing this again. This is stupid. And it pulled a lung hose out of my lung one time.
Oh, that hurts like crazy.
And I just remember, well, that in itself hurts again. I've never, so you laugh about these things. Then again, as you get feeling a little bit better, then you're back out there just doing it. but you know what? But why it is, when it works right, when you win, so cool. There ain't nothing like it.
Well, that's the thing is I see the craving. And that's what I've saw through the years, the guys, they get married, have a kid, and they lose that craving. Yeah. That's when you better quit.
Yeah.
But it's the craving, and it's the adrenaline craving, I think.
Well, it is. I mean, I can't even imagine the feeling of riding like a bucker at, 84 points or whatever, that feeling of getting off that bull and having him run to the other end of the arena.
Is the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's again, like I mentioned, it's kind of like describing the taste of chocolate. You can't, but it's amazing how the feel you get when you do it. And like even though you're the kids into the arena, it still has to be fun when you win.
Right. Exactly.
No. So
when it all comes together.
I say that jokingly, but when you succeed at anything, as a CEO, do what you do now, when you have these big wins, when you have success for the team, what you're doing now, running the show. But when you win, there's nothing like winning and the feeling of accomplishment. And in the bull riding, just the fact that it's such a size and muscle difference, in the fact that when you look at you go into heavyweight fights, and you're all within 5 pounds of each other, size, weight to go fight this stuff. But who would go handicap a thing where this guy weighs 150 and this guy weighs 1,500, 1,800, right, and say, well, yeah, that's a fair fight, And so part of it is Cowboys. We don't really want a fair fight just because there's a certain degree of toughness to it. And when I mentioned to you that people think you're tougher and cooler than you really are,
right?
But that's not to say that you're not pretty tough, and to a degree, I'm not saying that's super wise, but yet, what? But the fact that you got the guts to go do something that a lot of people only wish they could do, and there's a lot of barstool cowboys that will talk about, doing it, and there's some others that'll go get on the good ones and
don't talk about it.
Nod your head and let's just see what happens. And it's just it's a special adrenaline kind of deal that it's just really hard to explain. And even in the timed event, there's got to be nothing like roping one, dogging one, flipping one in record time, and everything just works right. To feel your horse feeling so good, to the dismount works good. To just that's still, let's say if you're bulldogging or whatever, or if you're roping calves or even steer trip, and just the timing of things that you throw the rope, you lay the trip with, and just the timing of everything just hits right to where everything just flows. And when it goes flawless, and when you win, the irony of all this stuff, the best rides I've ever made, they were the easiest. But I've always thought that they have to be, because you got to do everything about perfect, or you won't get away with it. Because again, if they outweigh you 10-1, and a lot of people talk about the strength of bull riders. Now, these guys, especially these guys today, and they train way better. They are truly more athletic, absolutely no doubt. However, even them, I don't care how strong you are, you're 150 pounds, and you're still not going to outmuscle a bull. So that bull riding is really way more like a ballerina. It's a gymnastics kind of thing. It's a timing. It's like a dance kind of thing. Now, if you watch those real good bull riders, you will see them more. They're like standing on the riding arm kind of, and they move forward at the right time on those. So you take away some of that power by doing that, just knowing how to maneuver and finesse. And so when you see the worst things happen is when those guys will kind of get out of time or get back on the end of their arm. So now it's all that 10 or 12 to 1 power, and it's all in the favor of the bull. So by you beating them to the right spot or something over there, so your whole goal is you figure out somehow you stay on the part of that bull that moves the least. Right. It's like being in the eye of the hurricane. It can be going crazy around you, but it's calm where you're at. So it's special.
One of the things, that people discount a lot is your mental capacity to ride bulls or to compete in any sport, right? So, like in the timed event end, we always talk about, you got to slow down to be fast, because you slow your mind down, you don't get into speed jams, and you don't do things before you got steps that you have to take to complete that. So, like in riding bulls, do you try to slow things down, or how do you? Because I bet the first steer you got on went 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Right. Almost faster.
Yeah. I say this because this is actually, it's kind of funny to where, in one of these questions we talk about, so how, fitness regimens and workout routines and all, there's always been two schools of thought, for that. So just get on and bear down. It's 8 seconds, keep the dirty side down, keep a leg on each side and go. And there's some other ones, the few, the positive mental attitude, you picture the perfect ride, you do this, and there's arguments for success on both of those things, and the better shaped guys, usually probably the guys, and Twiggy would know better, the ones who are in better physical shape, they probably, I don't know, they ride better, but they will heal better, and because they're just in better condition, so they would do better. Now, all of that said, if you're really truly thinking, whether it's at the timed event end or it's the bull, if you're thinking too much about this, you're probably going to mess something up because you get too robotic. And I say this with humor, and sadly, it's true. I never got on a bull drunk. Never would. I never ever did.
Right.
I got on several hungover, and I made some really good rides. And what I deduced from that was when it's something, just you know how to do it.
You don't care.
Your reflexes and your motors, they just go do it.
You don't
and they'll know it.
it.
And it's because when you're riding those ranked bulls and you're doing it right, it's like you're in a cloud. Yeah. There's nothing like it.
But all you young bull riders, that's probably not a great tip from Dennis Humphrey today.
That's old school.
And I'll just say that the training aspect, when we first started bull riders, I remember talking to Wasey Cathy, been to NFR, 13 times, didn't know what a push-up or a sit-up was, did not know.
Really?
And I'm like, and now these guys train. Because it's so much core. First time I took care of Ty Murray in our first show in Tacoma, his back was hurting. I said, let's go in here, and I took his shirt off. I'm like, whoa, it looked like he got hit with lightning. And he goes, oh, you'd like my gym skip? And I'm like, no kidding. But it's more and more training now. A lot of core stuff and a lot of plyos.
But it's a different world too, because like when we were growing up, you're potentially up working on roofs of houses. Right. And riding bulls. That's a whole different world that we lived in than it is today.
No, but it's that core strength.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've, even to this day at 64 years of age, I'm not gym tough and gym cut physique or whatever, but yet just the act of, I don't do a lot of roofing these days. I don't get roofed up too much myself, but through the years, the act, just doing roofing, you think about how much that good, your arms, your back, your legs, cardio, that in itself, it just keeps you in pretty good shape, just in general,
I used to throw shingles in the summer.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, we've had, back in the day, we had a lot of roofs done over here that were done by bull riders between rodeos. They'd come stay at my house a couple of days. We'd go roof a house or two and get some money and go rodeo again. And the guys did a good job of, they would just work, but the motivation was, let's get some money to go rodeos. We'd mentioned buddy Charlie Needham years ago. He said one time, he goes, you know what I'd do if I had $1 million? And I said, what's that? And he says, I just rodeo till it was gone.
Boy, there's a lot of truth to that. That happens a lot.
A lot of truth to that.
So let's kind of bring this to a close a little bit. I want to play a little game with you guys called Best of the Bullpen. So I want you to think about the first thing that comes to your mind when they ask you these questions. What's the best bull you ever saw?
Bodacious. I mean, it was the danger. So I mean, he scrambled a lot of guys' faces, but it was impressive. I mean, he could. It was weird. He'd come up and he hit the front legs, and his head come up and just knock him out. And it's like I saw him break on Terry Don West rode him at our finals,
Right.
and had a catcher's mask on and broke it.
Broke it.
Oh, it's cool. I mean, it's like,
Wow.
and his face blew up like this, but it's like I've never seen him like it. This is so he was a killer, but gosh, he was gorgeous.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Yeah.
What about you?
You know, obviously I was around that. So Bodacious was kind of just the end of my bull riding career per se when I was actually getting on. But he was, you know, I think it was Bull Riders Only that made Bodacious famous, you know, in the early 90s. And so from a bull rider's perspective, it's hard for me to look at Bodacious. He was a great bull.
Right.
But I get it. It's truly, he
It's
could
great
have
to
been the
watch.
most, he
Somebody
could have been
sitting
the
in the
most, he
stands,
could have been
it's
the
good.
most feared one that I might have seen and witnessed, because it looked like to me so often you could do pretty much everything right. And A, you
No.
weren't going to ride him, and B, he was probably going to hurt you.
Right.
One of the best rides I ever saw was Tough Hedeman riding him, I think, about 1993 at the BRO
Yes.
World Finals, I think.
Oh, yeah.
93, 92, something like
great.
that. He was like 95 points. And one of the saddest things of all these years later, one of the best rides, I'll guarantee it's one of the best rides Tough ever made. And if he would ever admit it, he would never, ever acknowledge that, just because of this rift between BRO and PBR.
Really?
And I think I'd even heard that he even counted that as one of his world championships, although it was at a BRO event.
Yeah.
But but that being said, it was an incredible bull ride. But I also saw a time, you know, that's famous for that's one that, you know, made Tough, you know, look like he does now.
Scrambled his face
You know,
too.
but when we saw him ride him that night, that probably is the best bull ride I've ever seen in person. And it was on that bull. But that bull rarely had trips like that he just looked like just a buck and rank bull that night.
Hmm.
And these other times, especially late in his career, he got to where Bodacious was the chicken shit. And he would hurt you. And you talk about bulls chasing you, like hooking you down or
Right.
whatever. That would have been the least of things, because again, you could do about everything right on him and he'd hurt you. But back to the more of the, you know, and in my day, just some of the real good ones, you know, it was kind of around the same time. Gunslinger, David Bailey's was one of my faves. Playboy, you know, David Bailey's bull as well. And so, you know, 777, Harry Vold's back
That
in
was
the day.
the bull that I
Yeah.
always liked to watch. That
Yeah,
bull. He
those were
was
just
so
some really,
athletic.
really good bulls that they bucked real hard. They're really good bulls. So if you rode them, you're going to be a bunch of points. But what I would call, they played fair.
Right.
They just bucked hard,
Yeah.
you know, and Bodacious got the extra
was a
tricks in
kind of a
there.
killer.
Tried to get you.
It was just weird
Yeah.
how he could come up like that, and you're like,
Yeah,
you
it was
can't combat that.
incredible.
Who was the toughest bull rider?
I don't know, tough wise. Who was it? The little stocky guy with us. I never had to worry about him getting hurt. God, I see him, but I can't remember the name.
Well, I don't know.
Other than that, Terry Don West to me.
Terry Don's right up there. I mean, and obviously, you know, Tough Hedeman, you know, Lane's, but the best that I saw for a long time just riding was Terry Don was probably right up there. But I think I may have changed now, so it came so much after my time that I'm not so sure he's at least as good as anybody I've ever seen. And in my opinion, I think he's the toughest little sucker I've ever seen is J.B. Mooney.
Yeah, that's probably right.
No question.
And again, one of these questions was why bull riding? You know, what's special about rodeo? What's special about rodeo and bull riding?
Yeah.
J.B. Mooney, I just met him a couple years ago at CFD. Just introduced myself to him, you know, but I just watched him ride a bunch, and I was incredibly impressed for him because I mean his talent, and he only weighs like 140 pounds. I mean he's little. But when you talk about some of the training stuff that he does from standing on a beach ball or basketball and stuff, some of his training stuff is amazing. But that guy he's just a cowboy that rides bulls.
Right.
But he was a student.
And yeah, but he's and again, the cowboy way, and he's, I mean, smoking a cigarette and drinking beer and getting up, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's, you know, now he's the farthest from your athletic type of, you know,
Right.
people here on
He's
one
a
hand.
throwback.
Someone say, well, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do this, that. Well, JD keeps both hands, you know, busy, whatever. Or JB. But I mean, he was as good as anybody I've ever seen in the bull riding, and I I think he's tougher than anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And when I've heard him tell some stories about, I believe his dad, it's like, you know, unless both your stinking legs are broken, you get your ass out of the arena.
Yeah.
And he's he behaved that way.
So I've been watching, I've been to a few of the winter rodeos this year, and kind of this rivalry that's brewing between Wacy Shawla and Stetson Wright. I mean, those two are incredible bull riders, and boy, it seems like everywhere I go, they're in the same perf, and you can tell they're looking over the fence at each other. And boy, if Wacy rides, you can almost be guaranteed Stetson's going to ride. I mean, the PRC bull riding has really gone to a new level in the last few years.
And I have an interesting story with Stetson. It was in Frontier Days, and he was up in short go for the bull riding, and he had a wrist. It was bothering him, it hurt. And I looked, I said, well, we can put a cortisone. It was right before the final perf. And I said, we can put some cortisone. And he goes, oh, I heard the needle's this long. I just lose it. And he's sweating. I'm like, we don't have to do that, but it would probably help. I said, it's a wrist. You can't use a needle this long on a wrist.
Right.
I said, it's a wrist. And I said, but you don't have to. You make the choice. And so finally, okay. I finally inject his wrist, goes out and wins a bull ride. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, he's quite a bull rider too, and I like just the story of those, right? Because I've never met any of them, and again, so we're looking, generation, after whatever. But I like what I believe about that Wright family and Stetson Wright. I really kind of become a fan of his, and when you see the JB Mooney that's kind of gone by the wayside, but I think he's from my time, I think JB thus far is like once in a lifetime. I've never seen anybody like him.
Yeah,
and
I think I'd have to throw Ty Murray in that just because of the events he worked, and that guy was pretty tough.
And Ty's another one of those guys. Ty was a cowboy.
Yes,
that rode bulls. So and that's just. I remember when he was a rookie too. I first heard of him. I think his Odessa would have been mid '80s, probably when he was a rookie. I'm thinking. So I think he's 6 or 7 years younger than I am. But I remember just kind of big names. Ty Murray this, Ty Murray that. So I got to kind of watch him, got to be around him a little bit, and
he's an athlete.
Yeah, we were at some place in Canada up there and doing Canadian rodeos with Cody Snyder and I and Ty Murray, and we got some out of dang practice pen and some bulls, whatever. We're getting on some practice bulls and just just kind of watching him go about how he handles himself and his physique, his training, the way he goes about some things. But yeah, he truly is a rodeo athlete, and there's a lot of guys that are, the rodeo cowboys of, today, and I think cowboys were always special, and cowboys are just tough, and it's a special kind of tough. And but the talent that goes into the events that they do, if it's the timed events, if it's the rough stock events, all of those events are really, really special. And it takes a special person, mindset, physical wise, muscle wise, timing wise, that they're a special breed. And I admire them and I appreciate them. We spent most of our life, you and I have been friends for close to forever, that we'd poke fun at each other about being at the wrong end of the ring and tease the timies and the roughies and the whole works. That's what friends do, and that's what cowboys do, anyway. But every one of those events out there takes a special talent, to do. And it's admirable.
Well, I knew this would happen to the three of us, but they're telling us we need to wrap it up. So we could go on and talk about rodeo because, we're all so passionate about rodeo. Gentlemen, I want to thank both of you for the stories, insight, and memories for Cheyenne Frontier Days. And hopefully we preserve some of the history of bull riding that'll last for a long time by doing these podcasts. Without people like you, Skip, especially behind the scenes that do what you do, rodeo doesn't exist. It's
Cowboys
incredible.
are fun to take care of. Obviously, they appreciate what you do. Yeah. They're not going to sue you for doing stupid stuff. And now I say they don't make enough money to be jerks.
And most of the time, they're the ones that, no, I'm fine over here.
I'm
just
fine.
Put a Band-Aid on, I'll be fine, whatever.
And it's the ultimate sports medicine because like a football player with that injury can't go for 2-3 hours. They can't play.
Right.
You can do anything for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And so a lot of tape and a lot of, wow. They're going to ride. So it gives you the ultimate chance to practice sports medicine and see what you can do to make them get them through.
Well, thanks everybody for joining in, and tune back for more stories from Cheyenne Frontier Days.
Part of Western history, a legend walking tall.